Okay, so welcome back. And so now today we're going to talk about reflections. This is the last piece of the puzzle. Okay, so what is a reflection? Well, we have two reflections that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about reflections across the x-axis. We're going to talk about reflections across the y-axis. So I'm going to break it down for you so you can recognize which is which when you see them. Okay, so let's talk about reflections across the y-axis first. Okay, so we have our function. Again, these are the same function, f of x equals 2 to the x. Okay, and this has to deal with whenever you're multiplying by -1 inside the function or outside the function. That's what a reflection is. Am I multiplying by -1 outside the function, or am I multiplying by -1 inside the function? If I'm multiplying by -1 inside the function, that means I'm dealing with x. I'm multiplying x by -1. So what happens if I multiply x by -1? Well, all of these x values become negative, and all of these x values become positive. So what happens? It flips across the y-axis. So that means it's a reflection across the y-axis. So that means if I want to graph, let's do this one. If I want to graph g of x equals 2 to the negative x, well then what's happening here is I'm taking all of the x values here and I'm making them negative. And all of the x values here are going to become positive. So basically I'm reflecting this graph across the y-axis. So this point is going to be reflected to here. This point's not going to be reflected at all. It's on the y-axis, so it's the pivot point, if you will. So it's going to stay right there. And then this point here is going to be flipped to the other side as well. And so what you get is you get something that looks like this. Oops. Like that. So, if you multiply the inside of the function, you multiply x by -1, it's going to flip everything across the y-axis. Okay, now, what if we multiply by -1 outside the function? Well, that means we're multiplying. Well, another way to look at it is a would have to be negative. So this depends on whether a is negative or positive, right? If a is positive, then you're multiplying by +1, if you will. If a is negative, then you're multiplying by -1. Okay, so if I have this, let's say I want over here h of x to equal negative of what? Negative of 2 to the x. So I'm multiplying by -1, right? What happens here? Now I'm affecting the y values. Remember, when you're outside the function, it affects the y values. So now all the y values that are positive are now going to become negative. All the y values that are negative are going to become positive. So it's a reflection across the x-axis. So in this case, it's going to flip, all the points are going to flip down. So what do you get? Well, this point here is going to flip down to -1/2. Okay? This is going to flip down to -1. And this is going to flip down to -2. And so what happens here is I get the mirror image that looks like this. And so those are the reflections. So if you're multiplying by negative 1, if you multiply x by negative 1, okay, you're going to have a reflection across the y-axis. If you multiply the outside of the function by negative 1, you're going to have a reflection across the x-axis. And that's it. Have a great day.